Then I'm going to click on processes, and we are going to click on create processes. So again, I'm going to say this is my main process, that is the budget approval. So for the main process as well, the first question is that we need to specify what is the process initiation role. So for the process initiation role, basically, the question we need to answer is who can make a budget approval request? And the answer is all the employees. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to take my organization again. So my 2024 budget approval, and I will select the role employee. And these are the people who can make a new budget request. So after that, then what we have to do is that we have to configure this process, that is a low-code process configurator. So what we are going to do is that we need to decide what happens after the employee submits the form. So the start event means the form has been submitted. So I'm going to add a role, and the role that I will add now is the manager, because after the employee submits, I would like the manager to approve or reject the budget request. And after the manager approves or rejects the request, we are going to add a gateway. We need to be specific in the gateway. So I'm going to this one. The gateway that I want to add is going to be a split exclusive gateway, because the two conditions that I will have as output are exclusive conditions. Or I approve or I reject. I cannot do both. So if I approve, then I will notify for the approval. And if I reject, similarly, I will notify rejection. And as you know, best practice BPM, every time you have a split, you should also have a join. So at the end of these two steps, I will also add a join exclusive or, and this join basically is going to close my two conditions, and then I can close my workflow. So now let's configure step by step this process. The first step about the approval or the rejection is going to be what we are calling a manual activity. So manual means there's going to be a human interaction. And for this manual activity, I'm going to select my web interface, and the screen that I will select is going to be the manager view that I created previously. I can save. And finally, what I have to do is to configure the gateway and the two notifications. So this is going to be the last step that we will do. So in order to configure the two notifications, what we need is to use the mail provider that is provided by default by RunMyProcess. To use this mail provider, I'm going back to the settings, then subproject, and then I will add a subproject. I can search for mail provider. So this is the mail server that RunMyProcess is providing by default to all the customers. I will select the mail provider, and the mail provider is automatically added to my project. So if I go back to the process now, I select the approval. So I will say this is going to be an email notification. The recipient of this email is going to be an internal parameter called p_initiator.login. So I'm notifying the initiator of the process. So I'm going to say budget approved is going to be an email notification. Then I can select the provider in the subproject, default mail provider. And finally, I can say in the message, good morning, your budget request has been approved. That's and for the rejection, so this is gonna be if I double click approve. If I double click, this is gonna be rejected. For the rejection as well, we will say this is an email notification. Again, I'm going to notify the initiator. The subject is going to be this time budget request rejected. Is gonna be an email notification. Again, I'm gonna attach the provider. Message is going to be good morning. Your budget request has been rejected. Regards. Okay, so we have just configured the two notifications. Now, the last thing to configure is the split gateway, where we should have a condition. So in order to configure the split gateway, we need to link our business logic, so our process, with the interface that we built previously. Always check, please, when you build something that you are saving. So in order to connect both, so I'm going to select first of all the launch screen, and in the widget, I will add a button to my interface, a submit button at the bottom. So when I add the submit button, automatically I have this pop-up where I can select the process. So which means that from this screen, when the user click on submit, I will trigger the process that we have just created. Similarly, for the manager, I will select the manager and I will add two buttons, one for the approval and one for the rejection. So one is gonna be approve and the other one is going to be reject. So for the approval, I will add a value. If it's approved, I will just say that my variable approved is going to be yes. And if it's rejected, similarly, my variable reject is gonna be yes. So now we have two variables that are going to tell us which gateway path our process should follow when the manager approves or rejects. I can save. So let's go back to the process now and we can configure our last step. So my request is approved if so I'm going to select the marker if my approved variable default, because if the user doesn't click on it, it's gonna be empty. So default empty equals yes. So this is the condition that we want the flow to follow the approved path, and it's gonna be rejected. So for the rejection, again, we are going to configure, is gonna be the default path. So if it's not approved, by default, I will say it's rejected.